Final hour overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Brian Hayes, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. We've got Mark Masters coming up from the rink. Game 5 tonight, Leafs Sens. And, obviously we anticipate both teams coming out flying. We anticipate a good crowd tonight. I think a rowdy crowd, but possibly some nervous energy if Ottawa scores first. I think the first goal is so important tonight.
Well, it has been throughout the series. You look at it, and the Leafs playing with the lead is a lot different than the Leafs maybe having to get one. But they were down 2-0 and found a way to get right back into it. Yep. So it's, I don't know if it was Ottawa sitting back or the Leafs just kind of cranking it up. I mean, it was great individual plays as well. That nice play was amazing.
Yeah.
So
really, the Ekman-Larsson was unreal.
Yeah, that was a beautiful pass. And, we all talk about the pass, but I actually thought the shot was amazing from Ekman-Larsson. That was it was in his wheelhouse, but he was leaning back like it
so
was
tough to get that off.
Tough to shot, and then he was able to elevate it. And if you look at it, Ullmark got across, but it went right underneath his glove. Like it was actually, in his mind, he's trying to elevate it. Like he had to kind of like bunt it.
Yeah.
It was in his wheelhouse, but he didn't. It wasn't like, hey, a big one-timer. Do you see him? Like, look at one knee down, got to elevate it. And it was just a perfectly placed. And that's the one thing. If you had, outside of everything else, I did not have on my bingo card 5 goals from defensemen from the lowest scoring defensive core in the league this year.
Well, and 3 of them are from Ekman-Larsson and Benoit.
Right, guy. Now, Ekman-Larsson has been a perennial 20-goal man when he was in Arizona.
That was 10 years ago.
You're right. You could turn the clock back. But, I'm just, Morgan Riley had a great start. Benoit, Benoit all of a sudden.
The Benoit story, the overtime Benoit stories are the most out-of-this-world stories.
Right.
And that's another reason why, you want to just, if you're the Maple Leafs and you get through this, those are the kind of stories that last a long, long time.
Right.
Like the people will remember, because those are ones that I think the average fan can connect to. You can't connect to Auston Matthews doing you love it if you're a fan, but a guy like Benoit, you're like, man, he just shot it on net and it went in and it's unbelievable, and he was shocked and he couldn't believe it and he never scores. And,
right.
He says after the game the last time he scored a big goal was in Pee Wee. Like those are just great quotes and a great story.
Stay-at-home defenseman.
Yes, within the series. And you're right. Like offense from the defense, like Morgan Riley has supplied a lot of it.
Yep.
Has been very, very significant, and that's including a power play that's been red hot with 5 forwards.
Right.
Like you can't get any contributions from a defenseman in terms of the power play
because
they're not even out there.
Yeah.
Unless it's the second unit.
Yep.
So I think special teams clearly is going to factor in tonight. That's something I'm sure Craig Berube has been focused on the last 2 days.
Yeah.
You got to win that because you did it so well the first 3 games.
Yeah.
Got to get the power play going, and you got to kill.
Yeah,
you gotta do it, and I think the Leafs are probably looking at the refs thinking, okay, game 1 broke their way, and then Travis Green and everyone in Ottawa freaked out and yelled and screamed, and then it broke Ottawa's game.
Right.
Wait, now again, Ottawa would say a 4-minute major, but he high sticked them and drew blood in overtime. Like it is what it is. You take a high stick right in front of the ref, 200 feet from your own goalie, you're going to pay a price.
Yep.
But it has not favored the Maple Leafs the last 3 games. In terms of
I think it's been
penalties.
Very fair.
No, I think so. I'm not saying it's a storyline necessarily.
Right.
And in large part in game 2 and 3, because the Leafs won, who cares at that point? But I would think Berube and the Leafs have probably been leaning on the league the last couple of days too and said, all right, keep an eye on us. Like I'm sure they weren't happy about the Zub and Tavares thing going uncalled, and they shouldn't be happy.
It's a missed call.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I say, I think there's missed calls. Like I think the biggest thing is calls you call that impact the game. And that's where I think the refs have done a pretty good job. When you watch other series, it's like, okay, like you watch that Florida-Tampa series, there's a penalty every shift.
Yes.
Like there's literally a penalty every shift. This hasn't been, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Like that should have been a penalty. No doubt about it.
Yeah, Zubon Tavares was a missed call.
That was not. I had people saying, well, that's the same as Ekblad on Hay.
No, I don't agree with that.
Not even close. But here's what I would say. This hasn't been a contentious, ugly battle.
No, not in the least.
Like, which you see other series where there's scrums, it's not fights, but there's intensity after every whistle. This one just hasn't had it. Now, again, I admitted when this first all came about, I wasn't privy to the Battle of Ontario because I was still in the league. I wasn't really paying attention. You'd see it on the news and all of that. You lived it. Those seem to have
yes, there were villains. There were villains. There was multiple villains.
There was
on both
people
teams.
going, fights and jumping in the bench, like all these types of things. This hasn't had that.
No, honestly, I don't know who the villain is for either team. I don't know who Ottawa would look at and say, "Man, I hate that guy." Obviously, I hate Auston Matthews.
The only closest guy would be Pontus Holmberg.
Possibly Pontus Holmberg. And that's probably a perfect example of it because Holmberg's just out there playing.
And trying to play hard and
with some physicality and all that. But it's not chirping. It's not stick work. It's not really anything.
And on the other side, it's Nick Cousins.
But he didn't even start the series playing.
Right.
He wasn't even in the lineup game one.
But it isn't. It has.
I would say Ridley Gregg has the possibility to be that guy.
Yes.
And has played that role to an extent at times in this series.
Yeah.
But even Brady Tkachuk's not a guy like Matthew. I said the other day, Matthew, you hate.
Right.
You look at Matthew Tkachuk, if you're a fan of Tampa or Toronto or Boston, you're like, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Brady, you're like, I respect that guy.
Well,
he plays tough, but he plays respectful. He's within the lines.
Yeah,
they're just.
He's a guy that could be a difference maker if he decided I'm going to play like my brother.
Yes, because that scares you.
Right, because he
Matthew physically will fight and he's tough, but guys are like, I'll take you on.
Right.
Brady, who if he starts taking advantage of people, you're like, this is trouble.
Right, because there's only a few guys on the other side that can
keep up with him.
Handle that. Yeah.
Yes. All right, Game 5 tonight. Let's head down to Scotiabank. Here's Mark Masters, our TSN reporter. Mark, how would you answer that in terms of the villain? If you're looking at it through the lens of the Maple Leafs, who do you think they hate the most, if there is anybody, playing for Ottawa tonight?
I think it's probably Ridley Gregg, just dating back to the slap shot into the empty net last season and then going after Stolarz the way they did. They really didn't like him crashing into Stolarz there, and just feels like that's the kind of guy that if there's one guy that's emerging, it's him.
Yeah, and that guy, he likes that. I think Greg appreciates that role, wants to play that role, but he's a young guy. As for the Maple Leafs and their approach tonight, you've been around this team every single day for years. How would you have described the mood around the team the last couple of days, coming off the loss in Game 4, going into Game 5?
Yeah, I think they've been pretty calm and pretty confident still. I don't sense like any playoff demons coming out around the group right now. We spoke to Auston Matthews down here this morning. I thought he was in great spirits. I was actually pretty impressed with Mitch Marner yesterday. He was asked, about the collapse in 2021. He didn't get defensive, just spoke about being in the moment. So as much as you can take away from that, I feel like they're in a good mind space. The demons aren't out yet. I'm looking at the start of this game. They started really well in Game 1 and Game 2, got out to lead. And Craig Berube highlighted that as an important factor tonight, something they've done well at home, where they've won 9 straight games. And that will tell us a lot how they start this game. Because I think in these closeout games they've lost, they've come out a little tentative, looked a little nervous. If they can come out and just kind of look like they're confident, grab hold of this game early, that will tell us a lot. But from just the last couple of days, even right after the game in Game 4 in Ottawa, it felt like they are still in control, very calm, still in a good spot.
Who's your X factor tonight?
I'm really interested in Stolarz because if you look at his save percentage in every game of the series, it's declined from Game 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. He'll be starting a 5th straight game tonight. It's the first time that's happened this season. And I'm wondering how he's going to deal with the workload. He's never really experienced this. Obviously, that last loss snapped an 11-game winning streak for him, so he hasn't had to bounce back from a loss in a while. So I'm really curious with him because the last game is the first time it really felt like Ottawa won the goaltending battle. It's the reason why they won the game, of course. And if Stolarz comes back to earth a little bit and Ullmark's stronger, that really does change the dynamic in the series.
With Mark Masters ahead of Game 5 tonight, Leafs Sens. When you discuss the long-standing players and the importance of them having a big night tonight, do you separate Auston Matthews from the core four, or do you just look at the whole group in terms of the expectation and maybe the pressure to have a night?
Yeah, I find it hard to separate guys just because Matthews is playing with Marner. So like they both have to kind of raise each other up, or if one of them's, playing well, he can get the other guy in. So they're kind of in this together. And those two guys now, of course, have Matthew Nyes, who's quickly emerging as part of the core. And then on the other line, you got John Tavares and Willie Nylander playing together. And then they're all together on the power play, which has been very good in this series until Game 4. So I find it hard to really pick out one or the other when it comes to the core four guys and needing to step up. It's kind of felt like a package deal with those guys. And that's how they're built. It's like if one of them's down, the other guys will come through. The last game, it was the John Tavares, William Nylander line that was really good and got him back in that game. I didn't think Matthews and Marner had it, really. I know Matthew Nyes had that great individual play, but I did not think that line was particularly good. And now it's up to them to respond. And I don't think they've had like a game where it's been like the top line game. So maybe that's tonight. And that would go a long way to kind of changing the narrative and making it feel a lot different here if Matthews and Marner together got it done tonight.
You look at Linus Ullmark as basically the biggest X factor for Ottawa?
I do. I mean, goaltending is so much of everything, and he just did not inspire a lot of confidence early in this series. And finally, he seems to have settled into it. And, yeah, because the Sens have no chance of coming back unless Linus Ullmark is excellent the rest of this way. Like, he cannot let in a soft goal early in this game. He looked really shaky in Toronto in games 1 and 2. Finally, we'll see what that win does for him. He snapped a 6-game losing streak in the playoffs last game. So let's see what that does for him. But yeah, he's a big talking point. I mean, it really starts with him. Any chance they have starts with him getting it together and looking good.
With Mark Masters, so I guess it's not a surprise that no lineup changes, but Max Pacioretty is going to get a game at home tonight. They went with Robertson, obviously, the first couple of games. Any surprise on your end that Berube is going to stick with, I guess, what's been working?
Yeah, I mean, he's such this has kind of been him, right? Calm, doesn't really like to change things if he doesn't have to, doesn't like to mix up a winning lineup, even though he did make that change. Robertson coming out, Pacioretty going in for Game 3. I did think that maybe Pacioretty would get, maybe you go to Robertson. He's been so good coming off of a stretch and, scoring immediately. Maybe you could do that to create a spark. But, at home you can control the matchups a bit more and you can protect that Domi line a bit better. Pacioretty did lead the team with 12 hits in the last 2 games since he came in. So, he spoke today about how, he knew it was going to be tougher in the second game. The adrenaline carried him in the first game. And the 3 months almost layoff, that's tough to play 2 games like that, 2 overtime games. So the 2-day break should help him. I know he's got his kids coming to the game tonight. They haven't seen a lot of him this season. They haven't been in Toronto. So I know he's pretty fired up to put on a show for his family tonight.
Yeah, as he should be. I mean, it's a cool moment. We were both down there, you and I, Mark, for the first 2 games. I thought the game ops did a great job. Thought the crowd was really good. Game 1 in particular was amazing. I know some of the players were asked about it today, anticipating it, the roof to pop off. I'm curious what your read on that situation could be this evening.
Yeah, Max Domi yesterday was talking about how the fans, they need the fans. It did feel like a factor. And actually, Thomas Chabot today said he did not feel like the Senators handled it very well, the atmosphere in Game 1 in particular. That was the first playoff game for a lot of those Senators players, himself included. And, Auston Matthews has called out the fans earlier this season, right? I don't think he's the kind of guy to just offer, random thoughts and just, lip service to the fans. And he said that it was excellent in games 1 and 2, and he expected to be rowdier and louder tonight. So that's the captain's message to the fans. And, yeah, I think it could be listen, this organization, this franchise has not clinched a series on home ice since 2004. I was looking at the numbers. They've only had 4 of those games, those closeout opportunities, in front of a full building. So most of it has either been, obviously, we had the COVID era, an empty building, or on the road, some of these closeout games. So fans have been wanting this moment, a chance to celebrate with the team, celebrate a playoff series win. It's been forever. I think that the team realizes that. It's all there for them tonight, and they want the fans to be part of it. I expect it to be a really good atmosphere tonight.
All right, Mark. I'll see you down there, buddy. Good stuff.
All
Thank
right.
you for doing this.
See you soon.
There he is, Mark Masters, live from Scotiabank Arena.
If the rain doesn't stop you.
Sounds like there is a massive storm that is directly over our studio right now.
Power cutting out, all hell breaking loose.
Yeah.
Lights coming
Although
out.
if the power goes out, then I can go right down to the game, right?
True.
Maybe that would be a benefit for everybody.
Oh.
If I can get down to the game,
Fanny
maybe.
pack in hand or not?
No fanny pack tonight. No, that was only for the seats.
Just
man.
a one-off, eh?
It was a one-off. It had to coordinate with the suit.
Yeah.
And I'm not in the seats.
That's true. You're up top.
If I'm in the seats, fanny pack. I'll own it.
You have to
I
wrestle.
told the world.
You'll have to wrestle Jim Taddy for the ice cream. Was there ice cream and pizza up there? I can't remember.
There was pizza game 2. I don't know where they keep that ice cream.
It's in like a fridge.
Like I've seen guys eat it, but I don't even know where it is.
It's in like a mini. I feel like it's in a mini fridge there. But like
I think it's too dangerous, man. Like you're wearing a suit. Like I'm doing stuff post game. You go out. You get after like an Oreo sandwich or something, and it drops. You're toast.
Yes, it's not going to go.
You're not bringing another suit into the game.
So as someone with experience working up in the gondola, it is a mini fridge that they put next to the pizza warmer.
See, I'm focused on the pizza. That's probably why.
This guy just chiming like this.
Like JP, dude. What are you, Tom Cruise in there?
I worked there for almost 3 years doing stuff for the station. So
and you can verify that Jim Taddy would build a wall around it, correct?
I was there when Taddy got the tap on the shoulder from an NHL official employee saying, "Hey, Taddy, pizza's here."
Really?
So he has so much clout down there. The NHL employs somebody to let him know when food arrives.
I don't know if that's the full position that they have, but it is part of the job, I think.
Yeah, no, I've seen the tap man do work, but I haven't seen JP do work. How do you sneak in there, JP? Do you stop, drop, and roll by the ice cream fridge or what?
Usually I was able to get one by Taddy.
Okay.
He would sneak an extra one for me.
I might gamble and try one tonight.
The ice cream or the pizza?
Both.
You can do it. I mean,
although by the time I get down there, the pizza will be gone.
Shrapnel.
There's no way pizza's going to be around.
Yeah, it'll be shrapnel for sure.
There might be ice cream. So if you see me after the game with ice cream just
go sit
everywhere,
with your buddy Jonas and tell him that we were.
I'm going to listen. I love Jonas.
I love
your
Jonas
friend of mine.
too.
You guys owe him an apology. I think his analysis of Vasilevsky.
I handed him an apology after I
was accurate.
I was sharp with my tongue and I was joking tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But I just said
came at me too. I mean, you guys were harsh. earlier.
I want context to everything. That's the biggest thing. Like if it's just a straight shot, got to be better. Then I understand it. Like there was, like the Hellebuyck one is interesting because I went through all 12 goals that they allowed in St. Louis. There's some that are certainly you're like, you need to be better on that. He stops the puck behind the net, gives it away, they jam it in. Like that's on him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a screenshot. Kevin Sawyer came on our show yesterday and said he stops at 100% of the time this year, doesn't come up with that save. I get that, and the screen was farther out. It was Brandon Tanev that was way out. So he picks up the puck late. But then there's some really awful plays by their players in front of him. And like you said, he's usually a guy, it doesn't matter what's in front of him, like he makes that save because he's Connor Hellebuyck. He's having a great season. Hasn't come up with that. I'm fascinated to see what happens tomorrow. Now, I've openly admitted this. I've been wrong on a lot of things here in the playoffs so far. I thought Tampa was going to tie it last night. It looked like it, and then all of a sudden, 11 seconds, it's over, right? You know, I can't figure out who's going to win in that Edmonton series.
That's the beauty of the playoffs.
Because those games are 2 games within a game. You're going, God, is LA dominating them? And then you're like, why is Edmonton has just tilted the ice and LA can't get out of their own way?
Well, I said yesterday, the pie chart, if you've been watching that series, 50% of the time you look at Edmonton and say, that's a lottery team.
They're not, what are they doing out there?
30% of the time you're like, wow, this is, okay, Edmonton, it's a good series. Both teams are kind of alive. And then 20% of the time you look at Edmonton and say they're going to win 16 straight games and win the Stanley Cup. Like no one can compete with that.
But yeah.
It's just a wild. But here's my thing on like even Hellebuyck, because I think what I have a difficult time with is everyone's going to make mistakes.
Right.
Obviously, you want to reduce your mistakes, but the sport is high flying.
Yeah.
You're going to give up high danger chances. Every single team does it. The best defensive team in the league is going to give up 5 or 6 where you're like, okay, there's a breakaway. Yeah. There's a shot in the slot. There's a 2-on-1. There's a rebound backdoor.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the sport. It's going to happen. Also, you look at the breakdowns. I don't know this specifically, but how many of those were happening during the season that you didn't focus on because Hellebuyck made the stop?
Yeah, you just didn't notice it.
And that's the thing. And I guess that's where I come at it with him and even with some other guys. Where is it more egregious in the playoffs? Absolutely. Should it happen to that extent? No, it shouldn't. Can they rectify it? Yes, and they better. But it probably happened at times during the season too, and he made the stop, and you're like, oh, who cares about that guy came right down Broadway. Hellebuyck stopped it.
Yeah.
So, when he doesn't stop it, is it unfair to blame him solely? Of course it is.
Right.
But
he set the standard.
He set the standard, exactly, because he was doing it before. When they were breaking it down, he'd save their ass every time, and you're like, well, okay, this is why they won the President's Trophy. Are you moving the goalpost? Not you specifically, I'm talking the general conversation, where it's like, well, yeah, but wait a minute, what about this and that? I'm like, yeah, but that was happening before, and you just stop him.
You're right. And on a Tuesday in November, nobody's paying attention.
People in New York and Florida and Toronto aren't watching the whole game.
Right.
They're just saying, man, do you see what that guy did last night? Unbelievable.
And the stakes are so much higher. St. Louis is playing, you've now played the same team 4 times in a row. You're starting to pick up things and go, geez, we scored because we got traffic. We scored because we got our shots through. We were able to expose, like I said, we were talking about yesterday. Luke Schenn looked his age the other night.
Yes.
And I was saying, on the road, you can't shelter somebody. It's like, go play, you get trapped out or whatever. They didn't lose because Luke Schenn. The point being, though, there is factors that you can manipulate in a certain game where you control that last change. Mm-hmm. Find an extra shift for somebody. Montgomery's done a really good job. Now, Arniel I don't know if you watched he was chippy on his post-game media the other day. It's like, I'm not going to tell you, but we did something in the first period. The first 18 minutes of that game, Winnipeg was awesome. And then they gave up a goal late in that first period, and it was like a house of cards. It fell apart. And then you were like, here we go again. It was 1-1 after the first, and Winnipeg held every analytic, every territorial advantage. But period 2 and 3 was gone. Winnipeg was out to lunch.
Well, and this year, what separated them from years past was their ability to score.
Yeah.
Their special teams were so
number 1
elite.
in the league.
And when that starts to fall off, and yes, you're without Ehlers, and yes, you're without Velarde. Velarde's going to play, and that's significant because he's a big time player for them. But if you can't score goals,
right?
What
do you do?
You can't win, man.
No,
you need a combination of all of it. I mean, that's the last team standing. You're going to look at it and say they did everything right.
Yeah,
that's the way it goes. They scored. They special teams. They stayed healthy. They got some bounces, and their goalie was great.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the same formula every single year, and that's what makes the Stanley Cup playoffs so great. And I think this year, maybe more so than any other year. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just Florida's at the end and they win, and you're like, yeah, you know what? They are the best team, and that's the way it played out. But it does feel like 10 days in, it's very difficult to predict. It's very difficult to predict what that Cup final is going to look like.
Well,
it could be a combination of so many different teams.
I mean, we have not talked about much the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah.
Or, yes, we've talked about
Vegas,
Carolina.
It's 2-2, but they feel like they've got them on the ropes to an extent.
Well. Now Vegas could get it together and win in 6. But there's just, I think what we've noticed, if you look at every series outside of Carolina, New Jersey, which isn't your sexiest
and Jersey's
matchup.
Been hurt.
Yeah.
But
there is some unique storylines. Now, what are I guess the only unique storyline for the Leafs in Ottawa is the Battle of Ontario, and the Leafs have a history in closeout games that they haven't been able to do it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, there's not really, like I mentioned before, there hasn't been a suspension, there hasn't been fights, there's been physicality, there's been, but it hasn't been over the top crazy.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of that.
I don't see that happening tonight.
I don't think it's going to change because I don't think the Leafs. I don't think they want it to change.
No,
and I think Ottawa now you have their back up against the wall. You can't do that now.
No, you can't take a 5-minute. You can't take
stupid penalties. You're not because the Leafs have done a very good job because of the way Game 1 played out.
Yeah,
establishing. We're not going to get sucked in.
Right.
We're not going to do it. At the end of the game, Game 1, Ottawa was trying.
Yeah, sure.
David Perron was skating around, and Gaudette was skating around, and they were trying to goad the Leafs into something.
Take a piece like the investment,
and the Leafs wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Why would you? You're up 6-2 in that game. You're on home ice. The building's going crazy. Just get out.
Yeah.
And they got out. It might be different if it was 2-2. Might be different if Ottawa came back and won game 2. Then all of a sudden, maybe the whole complexion of the series has changed. Right. And maybe that happens as we move on. I don't know, depending on how tonight plays out.
I forgot. We haven't even mentioned this Washington.
That's
Montreal.
been a great series, even though it's 3-1.
I think it's been fantastic.
Yes.
And just let alone, the Wilson-Anderson, like we were laughing about it yesterday, like that transaction, they all got fined, right? Like there wasn't, I can't remember what,
a lot of it was for the
$25,000.
Yes. The players can only get fined so much. The teams got fined.
But it was, without it being a bench clearing brawl, that was like modern day bench clearing.
Yes.
Everyone's there, and those two are, wrestling through the bench. That's been a high emotion series. And watching it through the TV, that building is just the
Bell Center is it's an incredible scene, man.
It really is.
It meets the expectation and the reputation.
Yes,
and if you haven't been there, maybe it's difficult to understand, but very few things in life actually meet expectation. And that's not an insult. That's actually, I think, a credit to how much hype comes with it.
Yep.
I would use my example of when I went to Augusta last year. It didn't exceed expectations. It met them.
Right.
And they were at the ceiling.
Yeah.
You can't exceed that. It's the same thing with the Bell Center. It's got the rep as the best place.
Yeah.
And then you go it and you're like, go to it. You're like, this is what it is.
Yeah,
it's not overly hyped. It's not inaccurate. It's just 100% on the nose.
Yeah.
The way that they react, how loud it is. It's a bigger building in terms of capacity. It holds more people.
Yeah.
It's an incredible place. And that would be very disappointing if it ends tomorrow night. Because, and I have an inclination to believe that it will. I think the third period the other night was backbreaking.
Right.
Like the Habs, they had that game. It's just like LA had that game.
Washington scored with 3 minutes left.
Yeah, well, it was kind of bang, bang, and then they pulled the goalie and they had possession and Hudson.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just got away from them, and next thing you know, you're down 3-1.
Well, there's 4 3-1 series on the East.
Do you think any of them come back to push 7? Not necessarily win, but do you think any of those series go 7?
I want to say yes, but I wouldn't be able to tell you who. Because I feel like it's like maybe the law of averages. Maybe there's one team that pushes 7, and I could say, I could make a case for Tampa.
Yes.
Just because how strong they are.
Yep.
But
yeah.
Maybe the law of averages, and that's still being lean. That's 25. I'm saying 1-4. That's 25%. It could be 0, but
yeah.
Emily Kaplan said at 6:00. She was
when you start doubting teams,
you go, okay, this team
thinking you got to read on something.
There's an injury or a bad penalty one night or something like you can't.
Well, it's 3-1. Like you win the next game.
Right. You always say somebody's got to be up.
Someone's got to be up or down 3-2.
But I can see some teams making it 3-2 and then maybe 3-3.
I want game 7s. I love game 7s.
But I think it's 1-4. I really do. And I can't tell you.
Honest.
I refuse to commit, and it's not because I'm being a dink about it. I couldn't tell you who.
It feels like either the Battle of Florida or Battle of Ontario. Feels that way because the Habs have been in their games. Habs have had chances. They lost in overtime game 1. They have not.
Yeah.
The other night the score was a little bit misleading. That got away from them. They had a lead in the third period. The Habs could. I just feel like I think they're outmatched there.
Yeah, there's some depth and stuff.
And Carolina, I just feel like that feels like a formality personally. But
yeah, I think the Tampa those games are tight, and I don't know. You don't know who's healthy and who's not. Like Hagel's not going to play Game 5.
No, he's not. And again,
Ekblad probably will get suspended. Correct?
We haven't seen anything yet on it.
But did we not say that? I thought I read today he was having a hearing.
Yes, he is having a hearing. I believe he's having a phone hearing, which would suggest he probably gets a game.
And the Mikula, he got a fine.
But he got a fine. That's nothing. He's not getting anything
put
beyond
on the
that.
Books for that. That was it.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Books, but
paid $2,500 and you're on the books.
Bergensen's. He took his helmet off and he had a welt on his.
That was dangerous, man. That was a dangerous play and a very that could have easily been a suspension and people could totally reason with that.
I've always found this. And I said this, I did the Winnipeg Jets game the other day against St. Louis. I find it's tough. Maybe correct me if you're wrong. Do you have a lot of emotion even as a fan watching an afternoon game?
It's a weird experience.
So I'm watching Winnipeg and St. Louis play. Don't you feel it's a tough, like even as a fan, but as a player, bringing that level up to 100, like through the roof, where you're coming out of your skin. It's like it's 1:10 in the afternoon.
I know. There's sun like getting through the concourse.
I've always found like afternoon games as a player were weird games. There were sleepy games. There was not lead changes, but there was momentum changes because one team's awake, the other team's asleep. Try doing that in the playoffs against a hated rival. Like that's why
you're getting hit at 1:05 p.m.
And you
Eastern
got out of
time.
bed at 9 a.m. and you got up and you went right to the rink and you ate and hey, you're playing. Like I hate, and again, maybe this is all TV, I get it. I hate the afternoon game.
I hear you. Well, you don't have to worry about it during the week.
A dreaded playoff, these two are hated rivals, Tampa and
there could be
Florida.
game 7s during the day on the weekend.
3 o'clock, game 7.
Like these teams all playing tonight, you could have, any combination. If there's multiple games, one of them's at 3 o'clock.
Right.
Anyway. All right, best bets coming up later in the hour. Game 5, we're chugging towards it. We've got the Jays in action tonight, the Scepters in action downtown tonight. We got 3 other Stanley Cup playoff games. We got NBA playoff games. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, best bets powered by FanDuel later in the hour. Game 5 tonight. Leafs in action, Oilers in action, Blue Jays in action tonight. We did confirm and deny earlier. Probably a new record. We only got to 2 of them.
Right.
We only did 2 confirm or denies.
Started arguing. That's why I think we
started arguing.
Or I don't know what we were doing.
That was disappointing. But we have more in the bank. You want me to fire off a few more?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, let's continue with confirm or deny. If the Florida Panthers wins another Stanley Cup, they will surpass the Tampa dynasty as the best team of the 2020s.
What did Tampa do?
They won 2 and went to 3 Cup finals. And they had a 62-win season in 19, I guess.
And Florida would have won 2 and been to a final too.
Yes.
I don't know if you
basically who's better? Who would be the team of the 20s? Because it's going to be one of those 2 teams. Like, you can't imagine someone's going to run off, 2 or 3 of the rest of the decade.
Did Tampa beat Florida in those runs?
I believe so.
Because that's what's interesting. Florida, to get through, has beaten Tampa.
Yes, they did. So Tampa did in 21-22. They beat Florida to get to a Cup final.
Man, that's a coin toss. It's really... The only thing I would say is maybe I'd lean Florida, and here's why. Didn't Tampa win back-to-back? There was a COVID...
yes, they had
won
a COVID
it in
bubble.
10 months.
They had a COVID bubble.
It was like a shortened...
Yes.
Like, hey, you're going to have a shortened season, and then you're going to have a full season right after, but with weird timing. Remember, the season didn't start.
Yeah.
So in a calendar year, they almost won 2 cups type of thing like that. So there was the same team, but just short, and you just squashed it together.
Yeah. And no fans in the bubble. It was a weird kind of scene.
Yeah.
I don't know if that should be held against them.
I don't think it should be held against anybody for that. But it just feels a little bit different as to, because I remember we were, in the bubble, it was weird. And then hockey started up right again, it felt like, because the league was trying to get back on schedule. And they brought the same team back. It was like, hey, we just won, we'll win again. Like, whereas Florida finals grinded Game 7 last year, and if they grind again, yeah, I don't know.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it's a confirmed because of what you just said. But I will say this. I think in the long term, because they both have great players, big personalities.
Hall of Fame.
I just feel like Tampa has guys that stick out in terms of history more. Like, as great as Bob is,
right?
Vasilevsky, to me, has kind of set the bar.
Might be a Mount Rushmore type.
Yes,
guy,
exactly.
Right?
And when you consider what he did in those playoff runs. Now, Bob has been phenomenal, and maybe the best hockey he played was actually when they lost the Cup final to Vegas. What he did taking over in the first round, how he played against the Leafs. Barkov's unbelievable, but I look at Kucherov, I look at Stamkos, I look at Hedman, I look at Cooper.
Right.
I feel like the bigger personalities, and that's, it might sound strange because you have Matthew Tkachuk and Paul Maurice is an incredible speaker.
Reinhard, and Barkov.
Yeah, but there's something about the Tampa guys like Stamkos and Kucherov and Point and Hedman and Vasilevsky and Cooper.
That's like
that to me feels a little like a step above it.
Star power, like superstar power. It's more of a coin flip. That's really what it is.
Which is amazing in a test. And again, Florida's got to get there to even continue this conversation.
Exactly.
Because Tampa did it. But I remember having that conversation, like, which dynasty is better, the Tampa one or the Blackhawks one or the Penguins one or the Kings?
Yeah.
And I think Tampa, for me, was probably at the top because of what they did in consecutive years and how difficult that is. In Florida, they might find a way to do it again.
Wow.
It's incredible.
It is. It's incredible. And they've found a formula. And the one thing that Florida's been really, I think, very uniquely qualified about, like, they've been aggressive. Now, maybe they saw the Ekblad thing coming. It's like, we need to grab Seth Jones. Because that trade seemed to happen out of nowhere, and it didn't make sense. And then all of a sudden it made sense. But if you look at the right side of their D, that Jones has had a resurgence. I always thought he was a nice player, that he didn't look very good in Chicago, bad environment. He even didn't look good in Columbus. To me there was, I don't know. He looks like a hell of a player, which he is. Mm-hmm. And you place him in that environment, he just seems like he's been a perfect fit.
Gets asked to. He's paid a lot. Yep. Got a big contract in Chicago, but he's not asked to be the man in Florida, which is always significant.
Right.
That's why Brad Marchand doing what he's doing. Phil Kessel when he went to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Like, it's different when you are isolated in a market like Chicago, where it's like, well, we stink and you better get us out of it.
Right.
Look what you're getting paid. And then you go down to Florida and Ekblad comes back, and now he's probably going to leave again. But Jones doesn't have to play 25 minutes or 26 minutes. He's going to fit in likely as a second pairing guy.
Right.
You've got, you got Forsling down there. You got Mikula down there. You've got other guys on the left side.
Nate Schmidt.
Schmidt scores every game effectively, and it's a great balance.
They do. They have
and Jones just fits in, man. Like they're such a good team, and if they get through Tampa and if the Leafs get through Ottawa, like it's the ultimate test.
It will be
because of what the Panthers represent. Because you know how they're going to play. Like this, we've been talking about. Ottawa has not been a punch in the face fest. It has not been nasty. It has not been elbows to the. There's been some examples, but Florida is going to come in if they play the Leafs, and they are game one. They are going to be
they
rowdy.
do that for fun.
Yes,
like they do that. Like that's
elbows and forearms and sticks and scrums.
What they do is they take a piece of you. Like, and Paul Maurice, when you go back after them winning the Cup last year, and you saw some of the behind the scenes, the NHL would release footage of the coach Maurice talking, like, take a piece of this guy. Like, they took a piece of Edmonton every game, regardless. And then by game 7, Edmonton didn't have much left. Like McDavid wasn't his dominant. Like they shrunk the ice. Bobrovsky made a couple great saves. He made the one save, I think with 5 minutes left, a kind of a sprawling save on Hyman was right on the back door, and RNH was there. But it wasn't like they gave up 20 chances a night, and they shrunk that game, and Edmonton just didn't have anything left. And Florida just wears you down. Like, they hit you. They're in you. Like, they expend a lot of energy, but they get a lot of energy out of the other team.
Yes,
too.
they do. Well, they drag you into it, and you prepare for it, and they have that reputation, so you're bracing for it.
Right.
And listen, if you're the Maple Leafs, if you're Carolina, if you're Washington, any team that's up 3-1, like obviously you're trying to close out a series as quickly as you possibly can. I don't think Washington and Carolina would look at each other and think, I need as much rest and preparation.
Right.
As the Leafs would look at Florida and say, we want to get this done quicker,
right,
so we get out of it healthy. Because every game you play, you're offering up more opportunity for injury, for suspension, for anything.
You look at the Leafs have blocked 90 shots or something like that. Like, kind of gets hit by the puck 5 times a game. Like
Matthew Nyes, remember in game 2,
that
I
one
think
on
it
the
was.
hand.
Yeah,
right? Like I thought
it
was
game 1
elbow. Or, it was the back of the hand.
Yeah,
but you're right. Like, teams are having players that are fighting through stuff because now that's what led me to believe. Well, Matthews didn't skate again yesterday. You're like, okay, well maybe he's
going
blocked the
tonight.
shot on a soft spot, but he's playing.
All right, we'll come back with our best bets, powered by FanDuel, and again tee up the game one last time before we see how it all plays out. Game 5 tonight. Leafs, Sens, Oilers in action tonight as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm going Auston Matthews, anytime goal scorer tonight. He's got to get one tonight. We can talk about all the details in the game, checking properly, taking on different assignments, winning draws, killing penalties. All of that is important. You're the best goal scorer in the world. You're the captain. You're the leader. You got to score in a game like tonight.
Yeah,
it's long overdue. He's got 1 this series. He's got 2 in his last, 14 playoff games.
Yeah,
got to score. You're expected to score.
Yep.
I got Matthews and I got Draisaitl tonight because he scores every single game. I'm going to parlay the 2, paying plus 395.
Pretty good cash if you
I like it. I like it. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Live same game parlays are now available for every Stanley Cup playoff game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 18 plus. Physically located in Ontario. All right, what are you thinking tonight? Because we got 4 games. We got other games going on too.
Minnesota, Vegas, outside. Yeah. Listen, the obvious one is Toronto, Ottawa. It's right in front of our eyes.
Yep, and Edmonton, LA tonight.
Yeah, I can't figure out Edmonton. LA's going to learn something, and they're already saying the right things out there. We're not going to sit back. We're going to go at it.
I'll believe that when I see it.
But Edmonton's going to go. We can't be sleepwalking for 30 minutes and try and rush back into these games. It's a bad formula for them to try and win. So I'm going to park that. Minnesota, Vegas. I know it's not the sexiest matchup. I can't count this Minnesota team out. I just can't.
They deserve that level of expectation.
Respect, yes. Now, Vegas has the pedigree. I don't think Aiden Hill's been at his best. Jack Eichel hasn't.
He has not played well.
No.
He's not played well.
You saw the Stone injury the other day. There's been a lot. But in the end, to me, I think that Minnesota-Vegas game, that's the one I've circled and go.
I got Vegas tonight.
You got Vegas winning that?
I got Vegas tonight.
That's in Vegas,
yes,
too.
Back in Vegas, Game 5. I got Vegas. I just think they've just got more pedigree, and there's certain guys that are going to play better.
Going to step up, too.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll have it all broken down tomorrow.
There's a kid from St. Albert, Brett Howden, who's a nice player.
A lot of St. Albert kids kicking around.
Yeah.
The National Hockey League.
Yeah, but he's a good young player. He signed a long-term deal there at really good value. So we'll see how it goes.
Shout out to Brett Howden.
Well, just I'm thinking, at the top of my head outside of the Ottawa game, who could have a unique night.
Okay. Let's look at that.
See if Brett Howden hits it tomorrow.
St. Albert, Alberta, representing tonight.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web, we appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.